Good morning, you're welcome to the breakfast on Plus TV Africa. My name is Reme Paulson. How are you doing this morning? It's, well, Wednesday, the 7th of May, 2025. A very beautiful Wednesday morning. And today's breakfast, you'll be looking at several hot topics for you this morning. One of which is Dangote accuses oil marketers of sabotaging Tinubu's economic reforms. Much later in the show, we'll be discussing the fact that the House Governor earlier trade blame over Benway killings. We'll also be taking the global stories that has made it to the front pages of our national dailies. But first, let's look at our top trending stories. And this first one says the Senate forms committee to monitor emergency rule in Rivers State. So the Senate has constituted an 18-member committee to oversee the implementation of emergency rule in Rivers State following the suspension of its democratic structures by President Bola Tinubu in March 2025. The committee, chaired by the Senate Leader Opeyemi Bamidele and co-chaired by Deputy Minority Whip Rufai Hanga, will supervise the activities of the state sole administrator, Vice Admiral Ibok-Ete Ibas, retired, who was appointed to lead the state for 6 months. Now, the Senate President Godswill Akpabio tasked the committee with immediate action, emphasizing the importance of accountability and coordination in managing governance during the emergency period. So, well, if you don't know anything that's happening in Rivers State, of course, there's been an emergency rule that has been imposed on that state. And according to Section 305 in the Nigerian Constitution, it allows the president to be able to, impose an emergency rule. But there were a lot of questions because an emergency rule can only be imposed under certain conditions. So let's say maybe threat of lives and properties, the breakdown of law and order, threat of public safety, and maybe constitutional crisis. And that's the reason why a president will be able to, impose an emergency rule in any state. But there's been several questions, which is the Senate, because the Senate also, were able to look at it and say, yes, we think what the president did was fine, and they put their own stamp of approval. But a lot of questions that were asked was is the Senate neutral in all of this, or is there political bias? So is it possible that with the Senate, is whatever the president gives them, the executive now, that's what they just put their stamp of approval? So how is everybody independent? How is the executive independent, the legislature independent, as well as the judiciary? So in this case, there's been the battle between the state governor, who's Fubara, and then the ex-governor Nyesom Wike, and we've seen, you've seen it just take different episodes or different turns. And in this case, a lot of people are saying there's a political bias to it, and there's possibly no neutrality in all of this. And so question is, with the Senate having to say, okay, there's going to be a committee to, just oversee the sole administrator right now. Is it a genuine effort by the Senate? And is it not possible to say, okay, you know what? The person who has been ruling, who's the elected state governor, can come back in, and it's not just the state governor that was suspended. Even the House members were also suspended. And right now, another question that people are asking is the federal not having an overreach when it comes to the state affairs? So why does the federal have to now put a sole administrator in the first place and now set up a committee to oversee that sole administrator when these people have, just elected their own governor? And, even if there's any battle or any political toss, it's important that, everybody just comes to the table, have a conversation, have an agreement, and look for how peace can reign. And the sad part is, in all of this, is the people of Rivers State who are, just basically taking the brunt of it all. So, let's see, because it's 6 months so far, where it's been 2 months and 4 more months. Let's see what happens with Rivers State. I don't know, personally, I don't know about the committee to monitor the emergency rule, but I guess maybe at some point you just need that to make sure that everything is going on smoothly. But is that right according to the Constitution? Because like I said, in Section 305 of the Nigerian Constitution, it's important that you look at the conditions, and conditions are public, threats to public safety, constitutional crisis, the, threats to lives and properties. But in this case, I know there was one of the federal government property that was being, burnt down and whatnot. But was that enough to suspend an elected state governor? And honestly, it has happened in the past, because if we look at Goodluck Jonathan's time when he had to put a state of emergency in one of the northern states, the governor was still there. He wasn't suspended, he was still there. But in this case, we've seen it take a different turn, and I think it's just basically fingers crossed, see how it happens, because like I said, it's different episodes. Every day you wake up to a new news from Rivers State, but we just keep our fingers crossed. It's a developing story every single day, so we'll see what happens and bring you the latest updates. Another top trending story we're looking at this morning is FEC approves over 750 billion naira for roads, RISCOP's major projects. So the Federal Executive Council, FEC, has approved over 750 billion naira for several key projects across Nigeria, focusing on rescoping inherited contracts to align with available funds. Minister of Works David Umahi, who briefed reporters after the May 5 meeting chaired by President Bola Tinubu, noted that projects in Ondo, Ekiti, Borno, Gombe, Sokoto, Zamfara, Katsina, and Kaduna State were among those revised, including the Akure-Ekiti Road and Sokoto-Zamfara-Kaduna corridor. He explained that several projects, such as the Maiduguri-Mungonu Road, are now divided into phases to ensure deliverability within budget, while others, like the Gombe-Yola section, have been trimmed and re-awarded in phases for efficient implementation. Well, Minister of Works, you're doing such a great job. We've seen the coastal highway, Lagos-Calabar coastal highway, and we've seen that it has really taken shape, especially if you're living in Lagos. You're seeing a lot of work being done there, and in fact, there's the boastfulness that by January 2026, everything will be completed, and seeing all these projects, coming to light and the rescoping and saying, how can we do better? But the honest truth is, one thing I always say about Nigeria is we love projects. We love to say, this is what we're doing. Everybody's working, especially when, someone new comes into office. They want to say, I was able to do this in my name. But the truth is, there is no continuity in all of these projects, and there's no maintenance. Excuse me, there's no maintenance. So we lack the maintenance culture, and I think it's important that in as much as we're looking at all of these projects and awarding it, we should also ensure that there is enough maintenance. So we're keeping funds aside for the maintenance, because why am I driving or plying a road that has huge potholes that affects my car? And honestly, you ask me for roadworthiness if my car is roadworthy, but the question is the road even worthy for my car? So it's important that in as much as we're putting all these available funds, 750 billion naira, that's a lot of money when it comes to ensuring that we're putting out these projects. But why would you want to spend so much money when in a few years it has deteriorated so bad that all of the cars are having issues, and then you don't even have a good road to ply? So great work having to put this in, ensure that it's there, having to, when it comes to infrastructural development, fantastic. But like I said, maintenance culture is something that we do not have, and it's something that we definitely need to imbibe. And honestly, for me, I think we're doing a lot more when it comes to roads. There's so much more that we can do in transportation as a whole. Why are we not talking about railways? Why are we not talking about trams? Why are we not talking about other ways we can just ensure that transportation is easy and seamless for Nigerians? I don't think in 2025, all our concentration, all of our focus needs to be on roads. We've been doing that for the past how many years since independence? We've been building roads. Why can't we diversify when it comes to the transportation sector? So I think fantastic, Minister of Works, you're doing a great job, like I said, but I think we need to think outside the box at the moment and look for other ways to ensure that Nigerians just have a easy rate supply when it comes to transportation, and they're not just banking on roads. All right, another top trending story says Oyo Police presents 20.1 billion naira to widows of fallen officers. The Oyo State Police Command on Tuesday presented checks totaling 20.12 billion naira to 7,076 widows of slain officers, reaffirming the force's commitment to supporting families of fallen heroes. Commissioner of Police Johnson Adenola made the disclosure at the command's headquarters in Eleyele, Ibadan, noting that the initiative is part of Inspector General Kayode Egbetokun's ongoing welfare agenda for deceased officers' dependents. Adenola also highlighted the launch of the Nigerian Police Insurance Claim Management Portal to streamline claim processing, ensuring faster and more transparent disbursement of entitlements to beneficiaries. Well, I would say the government is working, because honestly, these widows of the fallen officers, these are the heroes. These are people who have given their lives to Nigeria. When you decide that, you want to serve your country, what you're doing is basically laying your life down, and sometimes you're not guaranteed the fact that you would go and come back to your family. So what do you have in place for your family? And that's basically benefits like this that your family could definitely get. So seeing that these fallen heroes, their families are given something in return, or not even, it's definitely not going to replace the person who they've lost, but maybe a little cushion, just to say, yes, if that person was the breadwinner of their family, at least now there is something for these families to be able to bank on. The children can now go to school because there's a little bit more money at home. Even though the person is not there anymore, the family can, afford something to eat, can even start up a business. So it's nice that we're seeing things like this. I mean, in other countries, they definitely do that. It's an honor to serve your country. But in Nigeria, we've not really seen that. A lot of times, most people tell you, I cannot die for my country. But for the people who have taken it, as a badge of honor to say, I want to serve my country, I see that as my way of, just giving back to my country, of service. Fantastic. And we love that even when they pass on, there is something for their families to fall on. 20 billion naira, that's a whole lot of money, and I'm sure it will do a whole lot of good for these families. So Oyo State Police, well done. We're proud of you, and please do not stop. Of course, we want you to keep just supporting these people in any way possible that you can. All right, our final top trending story this morning says Ndume hails Tinubu's ban on imported goods, calls it economic booster. Senator Ali Ndume has praised President Bola Tinubu's directive mandating federal MDAs to prioritize Nigerian goods and services, describing it as a bold step towards reviving the local economy. The Borno South lawmaker said the policy, if fully implemented, would protect local industries, create jobs, and reduce pressure on foreign reserves by lowering demand for imported products. Ndume also urged the government to complement the move by imposing heavy taxes on foreign goods to further promote the patronage of locally made products and strengthen the naira. In other words, basically, buy more Nigerian. I think there was a phrase that was going on a few years ago that says, I think it was buy Naija to grow the naira. Yeah, I think that was the word that was used, buy Naija to grow the naira. So it's important that in as much as we want to have the best things, we need to still patronize the local industries here. Honestly, I think it even starts from the mindset, because if you think of someone going to the supermarket, they see something that is foreign made and they see something that is locally made. For some weird reason, in their minds, they think the one that is foreign made is better. That's because of the standards of service. So I think this is even where SON comes in, because if you're saying that we need to buy Nigerian products, then we need to be sure that, they meet all of the standards, they meet all of the requirements, because I wouldn't want to, spend my money on something that is not adequate for me. So SON, every organization or every agency that needs to look at the standard of these things, that's what they need to be looking at. That's what they need to be focusing on. Because if you're saying we need to buy that, then you also need to do your job. But let's be honest, countries have done this. China has done it. China had to block their borders at some point and say, you know what, we're going to just use our own products. It was tough at the beginning, I want to believe, because imagine if you've been heavily dependent on importing products like us, Nigeria is at the moment, and then you're now forced to buy just what you locally produce. It would take a toll on the country, but it's important because that's the only way you can grow. Look at China now. They create everything in the world. Your phones, your gadgets, your clothes, even food, everything. They're able to produce that. That's because over time, they've done this thing and now they're perfect at it. So if we're saying that we want to be able to grow our economy, it's important that we look at the local manufacturing industry here and support them. Ensure that, you know, the standards are great, ensure that the price point is also amazing. Why not? We would definitely want to buy, we would definitely want to support. But like I said, ensure that everything is right, all the boxes are ticked. And hopefully, you know, Nigeria's economy would just grow, would just be better, because honestly, like I said, if we keep having to import, then what we're doing is putting all of our foreign reserves, or all of our investments, everything, we're looking for dollars, we're looking for pounds, we're looking for all of these foreign currencies, and then we're not even getting anything in return. But imagine an exporting country. Imagine if Nigeria was exporting so much, maybe all of the products that we use, we're creating it ourselves, the agriculture that we have, we're, you know, ensuring that we have mechanized farming and whatnot, and we're now exporting it. That way we're making more money. But now we're heavily dependent on loans. That's because we're not getting anything. So if we really want to generate more revenue in Nigeria, we need to be looking at how to ensure that we're, you know, just supporting the local industries here. So I think it's a bold move, to be honest. It's a bold move. It would be tough, but, you know, like the president said, tighten up your belts. So it's important that we just find a way around it. There's so many reforms that are coming. I think at this point, everybody's just trying what they can. And I think the government is also doing that, you know, just throwing their eggs and saying, you know, let's see which one would hatch. And hopefully, you know, the economy just revives itself and gets better. All right, that's it for our top trending stories. We'll go on a short break. We'll have the weather report. And when we return, we'll be having the paper review. So please stay with us.